So this was Justin versus who? Versus who?
Matt Flynn.
Matt Flynn? Okay. Justin, you're white? Okay. So Justin started off with e4. Good start so far. c5. Sicilian defense. Knight f3. g6. And d4. So black goes for a hyper-accelerated dragon. So g6 is, I've played this a lot. And one of the ideas, well, for one thing, compared to the regular dragon, you know how you usually get the dragon, right? d6, d4, takes, knight f6, knight c3, g6. For one thing, in this one, d6 pawn is pushed up one square, and there's a big difference if it's only moved, if it hasn't moved yet. You might have a chance to play d5 in one move, and that changes things a lot. But yeah, I mean, so it changes the way white can play. For instance, here, white can play bishop here, here, castles, queen d2, knight c6, and castle queenside, because d5 loses a move. I mean, d5 is the main move here, but you can't really afford to do that in the accelerated dragon. The disadvantage, it also avoids, for instance, check, bishop b5 check. g6 doesn't allow this. But the disadvantage is that maybe white will be able to get, and because black won't be playing knight f6 early on and making white play knight c3, it means that white's going to be able to play Maroczy bind with c4 if he wants to. So g6, okay. d4, okay. C takes. Now you can also delay with bishop g7, delay the capture, but here white has kind of dangerous variation. Black takes the pawn back. Oops. Black takes the pawn back, and then here and now with the knight threatening to come up to maybe to b5 and bishop e3, and these moves are gaining time. It's a dangerous line for black. I mean, it's playable. I've played this, but it's pretty dangerous. White gets a big lead in development. So for instance, d6, knight b5, threatening bishop e3, which would take the a pawn. And then if a6, then you got bishop e3 hitting the queen. Queen has to go to c6, and then knight a7. Have to guard that bishop. Trade, and then you could continue with the attack with queen b3 and bishop c4 coming, or knight g5 moves. Yeah, on the other hand, if black could develop and get castled in time, he has a very strong, his game is very strong positionally. He has no weaknesses in his position as long as he manages to get castled. But it looks like a dangerous line because based on what I've seen from here. But okay, so what was the name of black player who had black?
Matt.
Matt? Okay, so Matt decided to take right away, and Justin took with a knight. Another possibility is to take with a queen. Oops. Take with a queen, and then, for instance, e5. That's a whole other line. But, huh?
I played that before.
Yeah. Oops. I just accidentally deleted the rest of the game. Is there an undo here?
Control Z, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay, so knight takes. Okay, so he went bishop g7, and here is where white could use the possibility of playing the Maroczy bind and play c4. So this way, he puts the pawn in front of the knight, and this helps him to control the d5 square, and it reduces any play black has on the c file, like in the normal Sicilian. On the other hand, it blocks this bishop, and it delays white's development, and it weakens the dark square, so it's a trade-off. But most people prefer to take this option, I mean, theoretically, because otherwise everyone would play this instead of the regular dragon. The whole point of the regular dragon, you play knight f6 to force knight c3 in that move order. What we were seeing, knight f3, d6, knight f6. So he's able to play knight f6 and force knight c3, basically. I mean, bishop d3 gives other options, but and this way white doesn't get the option of playing the so that's why c4 is logical. But okay, bishop e3 is a move as well. Knight c6. Again, white could play c4. Knight f6 is another possibility, which would cut that out. Notice what would happen after e5. Queen a5, yeah. So this is typical tactics. And then if knight c3, white's blocked the pawn, and black can go into the back to this. Okay, that's probably what we got in the game. Knight c6. Again, white could play c4. He went bishop c4. Matt played e6, which is really, I don't like that move at all. I mean, I think this creates huge holes. Are you Matt, or is Matt here? No.
He's not here.
Oh, okay.
He had to go.
Oh, okay. I mean, this move creates huge holes. I mean, in the white's position. I mean, black's position. So white just castled, which looks reasonable. But couldn't you? I would really.
What about knight b5?
Yeah, my first instinct is to go knight b5 and b2's hanging. I know. I don't really care about b2 because the dark squares are just awful, right? Maybe I could queen d6, one possibility. Well, then he has bishop e5, right? Yeah. Well, I mean, I would really want to. Yeah, maybe we do something like a6, yeah. Then rook b1. No. Yeah, maybe you were right not to. Maybe it doesn't lead anywhere. It just looks like the first thing to look at. Knight d2. I mean, surely white has a lot of compensation, but maybe you don't have to do this. I don't know.
I totally thought of that.
Oh no, you can't take the exchange. Black should not take the exchange here. That's busted for black. But I'm thinking maybe something like a6. Something like a6, and then. I mean, this got to be good for white, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how can black play this way? This is terrible. But maybe that's what you should do, because if you castle, you give him a chance to play knight e6. Doesn't have to. You can play knight e7 because now knight b5 doesn't quite hit the mark. Yeah, he played knight e7, and now knight. I mean, it might still be good for white, but it's like I would go straight for that. I would do this, you know. I mean, I don't care about. I would just want him to take that. Okay, more development. And if you take the rook, just for those who don't believe us, but people, experienced chess players know that this is going to be terrible for black. This is not going to end in happiness. You know, the dark squares are just too weak in black's position. Maybe, you know, f6, and now we could play, for instance, coming here, and then knight d6 is coming, that type of thing. The discovered check if black moves to, you know, or just in general. I mean, black can't survive this position. We could just castle, but his pieces just aren't working. You know, it's too much for black to deal with. But if he doesn't take the rook, okay, I'm checking on d6. If he goes, important tactic, if d5, I take, right?
Takes all the time.
Yeah, and then what am I going to do? Yeah, bishop takes. And this way, if queen takes, then I have knight c7. And otherwise, you know, position is wide open. White's about to castle, and knight c4 coming, that type of thing. I mean, immediately I can go knight c4. And again, if black takes the exchange, this is really scary. You know, I mean, this is no good. Dark squares are too weak. So yeah, I think you should play that right away, because castles now knight e7, now knight b5. Black's ready to castle, or maybe he can even get away with
I was afraid of like d5.
Well, d5 you can take. Yeah, I mean b2 is also hanging. So you can't really. Yeah, I guess you can't really do this, because after all the trades, b2 is hanging at the end. So it takes knight c7, then takes, and then bishop b2. And here in the ending, it may not be enough compensation. It might be enough, but no sense in, you know. But even castles, because it's a big difference if black's able to castle. And knight on d6, it's going to get undermined somehow. You know.
That's why I
Bishop b2 can grab this, and now the knight has to go there, and then maybe some stuff. But yeah. So yeah, knight b5 wasn't looking to. But yeah, immediate knight b5 definitely. You got to do that, I think. Okay, so castles. Now he went knight b5. I suppose again d5 makes sense. Black went a6, which yeah, forcing the knight to go where it probably just wants to go anyway. Yeah, I suppose white's better in any case. I mean, e6 is not a good move. e6 is very terrible. After everything, practically, white's better. I would just definitely go for that nice looking attack with the immediate knight b5. And okay, so he went a6, knight there, b5. Okay, it's really going to be hard to shake off white's grip after letting the knight into d6. I suppose d5, but black gets the pawn back on b2. Like after this, for instance. But white's pieces are far more, maybe you don't have to go rook b1, but in any case, white's pieces are far more active here. Now bishop c5 and knight d6, and actually black's getting killed, right? So, yeah, I don't like black's position after. Okay, so a6, okay, knight d6, b5. Why'd you go to d3 though? Why not go to...
Yeah, I think that was a mistake.
Yeah, you're blocking the d file. Go to b3 and the bishop... Well, yeah, so what? He trades off your bishop. I mean, that's bound to happen. He could have gone knight e5 if he went bishop d3 if he wanted to. Because the bishop is not good on d3. You should be happy he trades it off. I mean, that's not that great of a bishop anyway. It's facing these pawns on e6 and f7.
Yeah.
I mean, but here, okay, I guess my next thing would be maybe let's go f4. Try to clamp down with e5 or maybe attack with f5. Also perhaps planning this without allowing black to go e5,
Right.
trade off the bishop. But mainly I just want to, f5 is going to be really...
Yeah.
What does it get attack f5? What happens after that?
Well, I mean, after f5 I'm going to be threatening f6, right?
Okay, so
And-
they would take, which way would take?
I don't know, it's black's move now. Was it...
White
What's...
has to take the bishop.
Oh, you don't have to
Maybe
take the
not.
bishop.
Maybe
I
make
think he
it
should do something like this because the attack looks too strong. But then again, now we're clamping down on the king side. I mean, look at this. I mean, look at this knight on d6.
White is much better.
The king side is separated from the queen side. This black has no space there. I mean, there are other. I kind of wouldn't want to close the position down, but I guess it looks like the best you got, right? The f4 looks like the thing to do, right? It was
Also
probably.
bishop d4.
Bishop d4 gives black some space. I suppose trade and knight here.
Yeah. The queen e3.
Now,
I want my knight for the queen.
yeah, your knight is a little bit loose, and
I can play rook a1.
yeah. Yeah, this also looks good for white. Something like that. Yeah, bishop d4 is also a good idea.
Yeah, bishop d3 I think was wrong.
Yeah, bishop d3, no, yeah, bishop d3. I mean, probably white's still better. If you're going to move your bishop back, you might as well move it to e2. But d3, it blocks the d file. But b3 for sure, keep it out of the way. I mean, that bishop is kind of just getting in the way here. Queen c7, okay, so you disturbed your knight. Bishop c5. Now, b4 I don't like because this, unless there's some tactic that I'm missing, it looks like it just lets the knight in. I think maybe black can do something like this. Maybe?
I looked at this. I thought that wasn't anything special.
Yeah, okay, well the bishop's under attack, so what do?
I guess I play like...
You got a serious chance of actually just losing the knight on d6 if you're
I
not...
thought playing b4.
Okay, but b4, now there's problems on this long diagonal, no? Okay, so b4, okay, knight a4. Now queen a5.
How do you love my next move after queen a5?
Yeah, I see it. It's nice to trap the queen if he takes it. Okay. But I feel like queen a5 doesn't seem right because, I mean, what about maybe this move black should try? Maybe b4 was right, actually. Maybe you just need to avoid that. And this way, white's pieces are still somewhat...
Rook b1.
Rook b1, okay. I'll try to find some way to... this move? I have a check. I take on h2.
Oh,
Huh?
oh, yeah. But it's a little slow for you even.
Yeah, I know.
H1 and
Yeah, and then I'll go. I gotta go. Maybe d6 or something. Can I do that?
bishop e6.
Yeah, it should be 6. Yeah, and with that bishop on c8, it's pretty tough. I mean, you can look at it carefully and try to find some sort of tactic here, but and I don't think b4 is right. Whatever I was saying, knight d4 and or knight e. Yeah, one of these knight d4, knight e5. But yeah, probably white always holds on to everything. It just looks a little bit shaky. Maybe there's some tactic which I'm not seeing. But okay, so b4, queen a5. Okay, a3, good move. Yeah, if queen takes a4, then a takes b4. The queen is trapped. So that's nice tactics in the service of strategy.
I was so happy when I found that.
Yeah. I suppose that even c4 is fine for you, but a3 is better. So yeah, a3 is very good. So he took, rook takes, bishop takes b2. Okay, that's
Suspicious.
asking for it a little bit. Yeah. You know, now there's knight c4, I guess. Oh yeah, that's what he played. Okay, knight c4. Yeah, I mean, black's see the bishop on c8. I mean, really, black's big mistake here was, what do you think? There's one move that's completely to blame, e6. It's completely to blame for everything black's suffering here. It's anti-positional move. You can't really, it's not a Sicilian con. You can't really get away with that when you, and then later letting the knight come to d6 was just not something you could consider. Maybe playing a6 at some point to stop knight b5, or even then white was going to have play on the dark squares. But okay, so bishop b2, knight c4. Okay, went queen there, bishop there, just gave up the queen. This is all over now. I mean, basically white could also take on b2, right?
Yeah.
It's more accurate, I would say, to just take on b2. You're just up a piece, rather than having to play with 2 pieces against a queen. But here, at least.
But also his bishop gets trapped here.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So then it was all.
Holding up.
Yeah.
But I
no-
played kind of badly at the end.
yeah. So black only has 1 bishop for the queen. That's probably not going to be enough. What was bad about how you played?
I don't know, I felt like I played bad.
Okay. Self-criticism is good. I mean, you're up a queen, so.
What's this? Oh, that's a good move.
Oh, so what? I mean, you have king f2, and that's
No,
also,
I was just thinking of-
whatever. Okay, bishop. It's nothing. You know, can't you checkmate him, by the way? Don't you have a mate here?
Yeah, I do. I missed
So-
that. I missed
So
missed
wait,
that.
this is what. So you missed mate in 1, basically.
Yeah,
Okay.
they-
So bishop a6 wasn't a very good move because it allowed mate in 2.
yeah.
Okay, so queen f6. King g8 would give you another chance to get it.
He's seen it.
Okay. Ooh. Yeah. Why didn't you just? I mean, king f2. Well, okay, whatever. It doesn't matter. Knight there. You had a discovery. Okay, you did actually make some mistakes, but it wasn't. Still not enough to mess up this game. But that now you have mate in 2.
Right,
Yeah. I don't see anything else really. The king walks away in every line.
Yeah.
I don't see any kind of tricks there. But yeah. Oh, you know, good game. I mean, e6 was the big mistake on black's part. Of course, going back. But that's the funny thing, because instead of e6, as we saw, queen a5, that's trouble for white. Best move is probably c3 with it. Takes the square from the knight, and the knight f6 hitting the e-pawn, and after this, you know, maybe castles.
It's like in the Scotch whenever you play bishop b4, check.
Yeah,
Just to
yeah.
promote this
Yeah,
point.
there's lines like that, you know.
Yeah.
And now black's also got knight g4 coming because there's d5 in some cases. I don't know about here. Here, I just, you know, you got knight e5 hitting that, and then maybe knight g4 or something. The big thing is really knight belongs in c3. So, yeah. Let's see, c3. I don't know. I've definitely had this position. My opponent was like a 2000 and went knight c3, queen b4, and then. Okay. Does anyone have any other games? If nobody has any games, I can show you a game that student was showing me. Actually, I'll tell you what. I'll show you a game I played in the ladder. I think I can remember. It was from early. It was from like 3 weeks ago when I first got here, and they wanted me to play a ladder game, and I played against them about a 1900. And this is the game I was saying about unbalanced position or an off-balance position where white. And I'll just show you how I was black. So I'm going to flip it around. I don't know how you do that.
Control F.
Okay. Okay, he started off like this. This I think was like 1900 or something. I went here. He went here. Or actually he went c4, I believe, but it's going to be the same thing. And I played the King's Indian. Well, I got King's Indian, but I also play e6. He went knight c3. Bishop g7. And he went knight f3. So I castled. I'm keeping most flexible. I don't need to play d6 yet because he hasn't played e4. So might as well make the move that I'm going to need in every case. Castling, for instance. Now I keep the option to play c5 or d5. And he played bishop f4. So this is some sort of, let's say, relative like of a London system, but c4 has been played. Instead of, usually in the London, you play c3, which is much more solid. And so here, I struck back with c5. Okay, so basically I went, so yeah, by not playing d6, I've got the option still to play d5 or play c5. It doesn't make a huge difference. I mean, d6 was reasonable, but here, for instance, now I get to play c5. I don't think white's system is very commonly used, not used so much with bishop f4. Bishop g5 is far more common here. This is a Smyslov system. Much more common way of playing. It's a little different because the bishop is not as exposed here in some cases. I had this in something like this in a tournament recently. But okay, he went bishop f4, and I went c5. You know, I'm just trying to get the business going quickly. You know, I could play other ways, but I want. First of all, the bishop is away from the queen side, and so a lot of times when people develop this queen bishop early on, you can hit with c5 and then expose some weaknesses on the queen side. So now he played e3, and this is the first real mistake, I would say, basically a mistake. I mean, it looks like a normal move, right? But we'll be seeing that this is it's a mistake, and I don't know exactly how to explain it, but the bishop doesn't belong on f4 in this structure. It's going to be exposed on f4. So how do you think he should have played d5. And the way I was thinking I would meet d5 was something like d3, with idea of playing e5, or maybe e6, depending. Like, let's say he goes h3 to keep the bishop with a retreat. I might go e5. Because in this structure, if the bishop goes away, I've gained time and I've got this kind of structure. And if he takes and accepts this pawn sacrifice, black gets pretty good play here. Even can take a second pawn, right? Within, you know, it's 2 pawns. Okay, maybe some of you wouldn't do this, but if you look at this position now, what do you think's going? You want to play this position as white? You've got a lot of problems to deal with. It's 2 pawns, but your bishop's hanging. Bishop's hanging. Knight e4 is coming. Bishop c4. You know, knight d7 stuff. Knight c6. Knight f to d7. You know, if white goes b4, queen here, hitting this knight, and yeah, white resigns. I mean, this is terrible. Well, I don't know. I mean, there's knight b5. I think. Yeah, but b4 can't be a good move, really. Knight b5, I suppose. I don't know. I can't go there, but. Yes, it would. Yeah, because you can go to c4. Yeah. What else can white do here? Hmm?
Isn't that,
Can I play
isn't the C pawn hanging also?
Yeah, C pawn is hanging. Yeah, that's the point. No, this doesn't look like it works.
And then it puts another attack on the.
Yeah. No, this looks like white's position's collapsing here.
Right.
maybe you should just play
It'd be a
E4.
triple attack on
I don't know.
Well, I think he's got to play queen C1, but
Queen C1.
yeah, but it looks like danger. Looks like danger position. I don't know. Because white does have knight C7 coming at the end.
Ooh.
I mean, knight E4 takes, rook B1. Maybe B4 is because of queen C7, you got some queen D6 or knight B5 type moves. Oh, you probably just go here. Because I don't care about knight B5. There's too much stuff coming down on white for him to be able to go and grab the rook on A8. You can knight E4, and now bishop C3 is coming if the knight moves. So yeah, queen A6
Grab
is
it after knight C7.
knight C7.
Yeah.
Oh, I check on
Should check.
probably check.
Then rook D8
My queen's hanging. I
maybe?
mean,
Your queen's hanging, yeah.
I'll just move my queen somewhere and then take the knight and win the queen. Looks like good enough. In case it's no point. But see how, okay, I mean, white doesn't obviously have to take the pawn. He shouldn't take the second pawn. If he takes, if he is going to, well, if he takes with the queen, then I don't know the theory of this too well, but there's, queen A5, and this looks like trouble for white too. Knight C6, rook D8, knight E4, all coming. I mean, I was thinking about playing that, or E6 is another possibility, not allowing him to just move the bishop away. If he takes, it's the same, right? And if not, I'm taking there with a Benoni with the bishop on F4 like this, and this is some line, but it's a little, okay. I mean, white can play that way also. Okay, so, but he played E3, a normal looking move, especially if you want to be safe, right? He doesn't want to go into the Benoni type structure, push his D-pawn, open up my bishop, and starts looking all scary, right? So he played a solid, safe move, but it's not a solid, safe move. So I took on D4. Oh, actually, I was going to ask you how you're going to play, but I just, okay, I just showed you, but okay, so he took back with the pawn. If he takes to the knight, then this bishop doesn't belong here either. Maybe taking on the knight is safer, but again, I got moves like, okay, D6 would threaten a fork, so it already gained some time. I might consider instead knight C6, just keeping all the flexibility again, and planning D5 or something like that, or to take on D4. And if he takes, I'm happy here. I think I would, how would you take back, by the way, in this position? So I think both moves. Yeah, both. I think they're both quite reasonable because with the B pawn, I'm going to get play on the. I'm going to get a lot of. I'm going to play D6 and Rook B8 and Queen A5. I'm going to get a lot of play on the queen side. I think before he can consolidate. But it's not like it's so easy to build up a center here. I mean, the best I could get would be a reverse Grunfeld if that were the case. If it weren't for the fact that this bishop's out here, it wouldn't be a. Taking with the D pawn is also good for black, I'd say, because in this position with the C pawn up here, the bishop is going to be strong on the long diagonal. The pawn is exposed, and it's possible for black to push his E pawn later on. So it's kind of, oh, anyway, he took with his E pawn. And now, how would you play here? I've had a lot of games. I think I had some game with someone today. That's,
Like D5.
yeah, D5. And oops. D5, and now I'm basically going to trade these pawns and create isolated queen pawn. This bishop on F4 doesn't belong there. It should either be on G5, putting pressure on E7, or on E3, protecting the pawn. But on F4, it's just exposed to eventual knight to D5, or knight to D5 later on. Like if takes already, for instance, I'm attacking the bishop, and if he trades here, well, I mean, this is the perfect isolated queen pawn position. We've traded a few pieces. The bishop is aimed here. Knight's coming there. My king is totally safe. Bishop G4 is coming. It's a dream position, And C5, probably what he should do is something like just get castled as fast as he can by bishop E2, and then I'm going to trade and gain a tempo, and then I'm going to keep developing. And this bishop should be better off somewhere else, but. c5 is something some people might want to make, but now moves like knight e4, and I'm getting ready to go b6 and break up the pawns, takes and b6 and that type of thing. If he takes, of course, then this, he's still not castled, and this pawn is in trouble. So he went queen b3. And this is here where I'm going to talk about a off-balance or type of position I took bishop takes. Okay, white has a huge lead in development, right?
Oh, not c6 at knight e4.
Huh?
You just played knight c6.
Yeah, I mean, white has a huge lead in development, it looks like, which you realize development's not just like pure getting your pieces off the back of the board. In fact, white's behind in development here. He's not going to get castled, in fact. I mean, he can castle, it's going to cost him a pawn, more than a pawn. See, a bishop on f4 is badly placed, unguarded and not relevant and vulnerable. Bishop on c4 and queen on b3 are badly placed. Queen is out of coordination on b3. Now I got maybe ideas like knight a5, but I also am threatening this pawn. And my biggest idea is bishop g4 to attack the knight on f3. I would love to take that knight, double the pawns, and then take the pawn on d4. Yeah, I mean, that would be true. So if he castles, I suppose I didn't want to take the pawn on d4 because, well, it's great for black. I got an extra center pawn, but the game goes on, and I have to put it in some work to win. Yeah, I would have played bishop g4, I think. Now I'm still, giving him problems with the pawn. But I'd like to take the knight and then take the pawn, draw his king into the firing line. If he goes here, I'll take. If he takes the knight, I take with a bishop, and okay, I'm up a pawn that time, but we've traded a pair of pieces, and my bishop's very well placed. Or maybe after d5, I would do something like this. Yeah, this is better, I'd probably. Then take the bishop and take the knight, and then rook c8, and king is busted up, and probably a way to win that pawn anyway on d5. Okay, going back, he went queen a4, so what do you do now? This is just a pure trap, but what do you do now? Do I take the d pawn? What happens if I take the d pawn? Yeah, he takes the knight, and then queen takes, right?
Oh, terrible.
Yeah,
Terrible.
okay. Brilliant idea. Okay, I'm not going to fall for that. What did I do? I went, okay, I got several good moves. I think I went bishop d7. Yeah, bishop d7. Just making his queen move away, If he goes bishop b5, I go a6. And now he's losing material, or he's getting, terrible position. Takes. Take here. If the queen takes, I take on d4 maybe. Extra pawn for nothing. Suppose like that, I probably would have. I think I did go bishop d7, right? Yeah, and then he stepped off of the. Basically, if he went queen d1, which I think was probably best, I was going to go bishop g4, and again I'm getting ready to take the knight, and then the d pawn, and it's just it's no good for white.
You play bishop e3?
Yeah, still now I'll take, and he has to take with the g pawn.
Yeah.
If that happens, I'm happy. I don't need my pawn. I would rather not be up a pawn. I'd rather just do that, make him do that. I think, okay, I did go bishop d7, yeah? Okay, because it looks like there's a lot of other good moves, but I probably was just kind of whatever. Okay, so he went queen to c2 because he didn't want to, yeah, this is what happened. He didn't want to go all the way back to d1. A lot of times people don't want to admit, they don't want to just go home with the piece, but you got to look at each position as different, as new, Going back to d1 was the way to go, the best chance at least. So now I went bishop g4. I should ask you guys to guess some moves. Bishop g4, okay. So of course I want to take his knight. And he castled queenside. Now what do you think I did here? I had a lot of good moves, but what do you think? Bishop where? Well, I would have done that last move if I was going to. That was also a good move here. It was also a good move here, but no, bishop f5, it's you know, he goes here. Okay, I mean, I love my position. That's true. There's no doubt about that. But he has his chances to somehow get, you know, d5 and then knight d4. There's simpler ways here, and it's also going to get his king into this firing line. Rook c8 is good. That's a good move. Nothing wrong with that. But okay, I just took on f3 because I see that here, I mean, it's real simple that his king is going to fall into the firing line. My knight's going to be totally soloed there. So he went queen a4. His idea, well, what do you think his idea is now? Rook takes d4. He likes that idea. But what do I do now? He probably was, you know, he's got pin on the d file, looks all dangerous and everything. I got my pawn, but yeah, you know, bishop e5 maybe is a threat. But my next move probably, like, he was a little bit h5. Yeah, I mean, knight h5 is good, but there's even better than that. It's the right idea. Knight h5, bishop e3, e5 would be fine, but that's, you know, a big advantage, winning for black, let's say. But there's better than that, simpler. Hmm? B5? Well, then knight takes, right? Or something here. No, that doesn't work. You don't need to be so speculative here. We already got a pawn in the bag, and white's king is in the firing line. Black king is totally safe.
It's like queen b6. No, that doesn't work. Rook takes knight.
Yeah. Right, I want to uncover this bishop, right? Do I need my knight on h5? Hmm? Well, that's what he said. I mean, knight h5 is pretty decent because it's, you know, then next is e5, but why do I want my knight over there? His position's still off balance. Look at these pieces. f4, c4, a4. There's problems there. So I went knight d7. So I'm guarding that. Right? I'm getting ready to play e5 if I need to, but I'm also planning knight b6, knight c5.
Can't he get 2 pieces for
No, that's the exchange. He loses the exchange if he does that.
Oh, you're right, yeah.
And, you know, and then this is really easy. I mean, this is exchange down and just nothing. I move my knight to b6 and force a queen trade, for instance. He has to guard. Well, doesn't force the queen trade, but I mean, you know, you see what I'm saying. His queen has to guard the bishop. If it goes here, I got like knight c4 or something. It doesn't look good.
Right.
No, I wasn't worried about that. If he wants to give up all his material and play on, that's fine. He went rook d3, but really there's nothing much white can do here. Knight here, for instance, I probably go e5 and then rook c8 next, because that's also coming. Rook c8 is another thing. He went rook d3. What would you do here? There's a couple good moves, right? But what's the...
e5 maybe first.
Knight c5 is the first move, and a lot of people just bang that down. They say, oh, knight c5. Maybe he would have resigned after that, I don't know, but it's not the best move. And I spend another like 5 seconds to find the actual best move.
Is e5 then?
No, e5, whatever, I mean, that's fine, but I can win a whole piece.
Oh, I thought after e5 you play knight
It's still the same thing. I mean, he goes bishop e3 and then knight c5 back to d1. I mean, you can resign or you can play on, but I'd rather win a whole piece than the exchange. He's more likely to resign after being down a whole piece. Knight b6. So I attack these 2 pieces. The only way you can guard his bishop and the queen is queen b4. And now, what do I do here? Queen needs to guard the bishop. Huh?
A5.
Yeah, a5. Now if queen c5, what do I do? Rook c8, yeah. So instead of queen, I mean, then I win the bishop for free, right? And if he took on d4, oops, after a5, I guess, I think, or maybe it was the move before. I forgot. I think he might have. Anyway, whatever. Something like this, and then basically he took, and then he resigned. I think he probably saw that this is met by the queen's guarded, you know. So So that was the game. But it just looks like some of his moves look pretty normal, right? I mean, first mistake is e3, which I'm sure, I mean, a lot of people under 2000 would make this move, or under 2200 maybe even. Already black has a great game. The bishop doesn't belong on f4 in this position.